Hello, welcome to another one of our videos. This is Dave speaking.
My brother, have you ever thought about the possibility of Molusco being taken out of power in handcuffs and being taken to the United States? That might sound like a Bolsonarist dream, right? But I'm going to show you that it has nothing to do with Bolsonarism. A fact is a fact, regardless of the person's ideological leaning. The fact completely ignores that. A fact is a fact. We are not Bolsonarists, we are nationalists. Let that be very clear. But what's happening, and I also understand the people's position, I get it, because there was the Magnitsky Act being repealed. There was Trump himself, right, saying in his own words that there was some chemistry between him and Molusco. But my brothers, regardless of that, the situation has escalated. And if it keeps escalating, there will be military action. US military action around here. Don't forget that Maduro was arrested. Don't forget that Maduro sang like a canary. There is confidential information there that they have access to and we don't. Now I'm going to prove it to you here. And I even want to introduce you to this guy here, right? The so-called Celso Amorim. Look, I got a summary of him here, okay? It's Celso Luiz Nunes Amorim. He is an academic professor and Brazilian diplomat affiliated with the Workers' Party. He served as Minister of Foreign Affairs under Itamar Franco and Lula, and as Minister of Defense in Dilma Rousseff's first term. Currently, he is the Chief Advisor of the Special Advisory Office of the Presidency of the Republic. So that's no small thing, right? It's not just anyone. I want you to pay attention, and if someone still doesn't understand, I'll explain it later. But pay attention to this information here. Look.
The Arabs have always considered that, let's say, national liberation attempts could be equated with terrorism. But still, going back to the specific point you mentioned, I support the strongest action. President Lula supports the strongest action against organized crime within Brazilian law. What we cannot allow is for a third country to use this as a pretext against us, going through various actions, eventually leading to military action, as happened in Venezuela. So nothing in that video I mentioned matters as an example of what could happen in other countries. Not just because of terrorism, but for any other reasons that would distance countries from American interests. So what I'm doing is making that distinction. I totally agree with President Lula. Now he's also concerned about not just going after the small-time criminal, the kid from Cidade de Deus who had no choice but to join a gang. He's interested in knowing who's in charge, who helps launder the money.
Who? You get it, right, family? They're talking about the real risk of Trump coming in here and taking Molusco out in handcuffs. And that's why they're going after these criminals, going after the people who get the money. Because in fact, it's no use just catching the small fry. You have to follow the money, right? But for those who still didn't get it, but then it's open to interpretation, Davi. There's always someone, right, who sees it that way. There's always that pet politician. So, for those who are like that, man, listen to this. You know that Jovem Pan nowadays kisses Molusco's ass, right? Jovem Pan later. That Bolsonaro lost the elections. She was one of the witches who would be hunted. The witches of Molusco. It was never a government of love, but of revenge. So, he targeted Jovem Pan. There was already talk, right? And because of statements and interviews that were given during the broadcasts that took place during that pandemic period, they were going to use that as a pretext to ban, to revoke the right to broadcast images and so on. The broadcast license, as we know. So, Tutinho understood that and started to change the slant, right? That's Zé Maria. All the time he gives opinions. He says things that are the opposite of what the audience itself would like to hear. And that has much more to do with the facts. But look at what he said. If someone didn't understand what the diplomat said, listen now.
And President Lula, this is a major behind-the-scenes revelation. asking the minister, like, if the United States wants to come in here with a helicopter and all and rescue me, is that possible? The minister replied, President, you don't even need a helicopter. He could come by Uber and pick you up here. That's how weak our defense is. That's the reality.
Did you hear that, my brothers? I remember when I made my first videos here, saying that the army couldn't last 20 minutes in a firefight to defend the borders. There were people who said, my brother, you're misinformed. If you see the equipment that's being bought, I say, my brother, you need to go back to geography class, right? Look at the size of the territory and do the math. If you don't know how, ask AI to figure out how many aircraft would be needed. How many men would be needed to really patrol that border and defend it if someone tried to invade? But unfortunately, right? So as you saw here, there really is a real risk, right, of intervention. And in fact, Molusco himself is consulting his accomplices, his comrades, his companions. And he's saying, look, what's the chance of Trump coming here, literally grabbing me by the neck, putting handcuffs on me, and taking me away? What could we do? We can't do anything, right, if Trump does that. Now, I repeat, like I said in our other video, right? We made a documentary style video telling you the truth. There would have to be a reason. The reason would be if one of our neighboring countries here, right, felt harmed by the lack of action against organized crime, right? So that could be the pretext. The United States would act behind the scenes, and a conviction would also be needed. About Molusco, which we can already see there's some kind of coordination for that, right? Because of the post, right, from the American politician who showed Molusco in an AI-generated image in Maduro's place, also being arrested, saying that this would happen to him. So look, it's not just something like, oh, it's just Trump saying it. It's someone else saying this. No, you can already see a certain intention from the nation itself, right? Why? Because we've always talked about this here, my brothers. It's easy to isolate. For example, Cuba, right? Like the United States did. But a continental country like Brazil, which is considered the world's breadbasket because we have everything here, it's really difficult, right? The fight is for control of that region. Because there are no good guys, you know? They want, right, the riches that are here. So now, understanding what you already know, we can move on to the video of this guy here, who tells it like it is about the subject, okay? Listen to this here.
American intelligence uncovered another one. This time, the American president didn't allow it. Things are about to get ugly in Brazil. Understand the idea? Be assertive, share the information, like it, and follow the ministry. Before discussing this topic, I want to address PT supporters. Listen, guys. If Lula stays in power for another 4 years, I'm not even going to talk to the right. I'm talking to the left. You guys are screwed. Do you know what Maduro said? Maduro said this, look, I was a dictator, but I took care of some of my people. Those people I knew were my friends. I took care of them. Lula. His plan is to make everyone miserable, no matter what. No matter what.
Regardless of ideology.
The party, whether it's his or not. Lula is a traitor. If he did this to me, who is his friend? Who is like a brother to him? Just imagine. As if he wouldn't do it to those people. Guys, I'm saying this to you PT supporters. It's time for you to change. I'm not going to talk to the PT supporters who are here in the United States. These ones here. It's Lula until they die. But of course, they're here in the United States. They're not suffering the consequences like in Brazil. It's not that they're going to suffer. They will suffer. The ones who are suffering now, they are living. Then many say no, but people in Brazil are doing fine. Doing fine how? Living off Bolsa Familia. And according to Maduro, Lula will even take that away if he wins the election. Because with 4 more years, any other government could come in and Brazil will never get back on track again, according to Maduro. And can you see the deficit? But let's move on. American intelligence discovered that Lula allowed a secret airbase and also Chinese laboratories in the Amazon.
And there's an agreement, right, folks?
The American president immediately sent soldiers to the Amazon. Which, by the way, Lula agreed. That one was sanctioned from the United States. He's a Venezuela general with his militia inside Brazil. And the American president has already sent troops. Guys, things are going to get ugly. But the problem isn't with the population. Lula is the problem, letting these people enter Brazil. So what happened? What did Lula do? Lula went and called Vladimir Putin. Pay attention. He called Vladimir Putin. He called Xi Jinping so they could help him. Because the United States had already started sending soldiers to the Amazon. And no, he already said he doesn't want Chinese people there. Also, there's a treaty that says no other country can do that kind of experiment. Except for the United States, which already sent it. Do you know what? What they told him. Did you see that it came out? It was in the media that Lula said he's talking to the presidential office to call and be able to talk to the American president. Do you know why? Because Xi Jinping himself and Putin himself saying this, look, pay close attention. We're not getting involved in this one. We are not crazy. We're crazy within our own rights. Outside of our rights, we're not crazy. So China won't be building anything else in the Amazon anymore. They are going to leave. And Putin said this, look, no, don't count on me for that. So Lula is immediately trying to talk to the president. Well,
Guys, this part about there already being soldiers and all that, I don't really believe it, you know? That's just pro-Bolsonaro talk. And what I can tell you that I know is real, right? Because we actually saw this being implemented, right? The start of social media censorship, etc. When that attack happened, right? Those two towers and so on, you already know. I'm going to mention it here because of the algorithm. It was decided in the United States, and the world recognized that from that moment on, if the United States, their intelligence service, detected any malicious group, any group planning to attack any interest or the United States itself, they could take action, wherever it was, even on foreign soil. So let's say Bin Laden was alive. So he runs to the Amazon. It doesn't matter if it's Brazilian territory, they come here and take the guy, right? So for that to happen, what would you need? The certainty that the guy is really there in that region, that he's being sheltered. So regardless of that, they would come in here and take the guy. That's the issue. And that's Molusco's real fear. Now, this thing about troops and all that stuff, I think that's already, first, it's unnecessary, right? I think it's misinformation because there's no evidence of that. And if there is, right? But there is. So, man, what was your source? Where did you get that information from, right? That's what bothers me about these guys. These guys throw a bunch of stuff on social media and then people get used to it because it kind of sounds positive, right? We're living in a dictatorship today where you can't speak. Country, right? In decline, companies going bankrupt, shutting down. Then the guy throws out one of those claims like, there are already troops. It's a positive thing for a lot of people. So what happens? The guy kind of gets addicted to these lies. And that's why this back and forth between them keeps going, right? All the time. The guys keep telling one lie after another. And the people who follow these guys, not just the general public, don't hold them accountable, right? They don't get annoyed. Instead, they actually encourage them to make more and more of these little videos in that same TikTok style. So I don't know about troops, but the fact is, the situation is already serious enough. It's already terrible enough without us having to make up stories about the family. So we know that this law exists and we're seeing Molusco's position. Molusco has been defending regimes that are, you know, American enemies. We see the massive presence of Chinese people here, right? There have even been Chinese caught infiltrating American politics, as we've shown. Right, a mayor who was a Chinese intelligence agent. So, it's not, right? We don't need to make things up. The facts are already terrible on their own, right? So my brothers, that's it. I hope you understood what I said here. Share this video. Here we told it like it is, right? If it's not going to happen, Molusco is already. He's scared just thinking about the possibility. Brothers, why do you think he's acting this way? Does he have something to answer for?
Could he be connected to many of the crimes that Maduro committed?
Anyway, leave your opinion. We'll stop here. God bless you, take care, and we are in this together. I'm out.